Are you GNV?
Yeah.
Hi there. My name's Philip. I'm one of the third-year orthopedic surgery residents at McMaster, and I've been asked to come and examine your elbow, if that's okay with you.
Yeah.
So to start the examination, we'll start with inspection, and so we'll take a systematic approach using our SEEDS acronym. So we'll start with swelling. So we can basically look at these same landmarks for any signs of swelling. So we can look and examine our lateral epicondyle. We can examine the paraolecranon groove, and so you can even palpate with your thumb and index finger to see if there's any swelling. And you can range the elbow to see if there's any swelling or any fluid that's palpable. You want to look at the olecranon process for any bursitis, gouty tophi, or rheumatoid changes. Moving medially, we can look for any swelling around the medial epicondyle. And then you can look in the antecubital fossa as well for any swelling. For erythema, we want to look at the same locations. So we'll look for any erythema around the lateral or medial epicondyle or around the olecranon process. Redness around the olecranon process associated with swelling could be a sign of an olecranon bursitis or a septic bursitis. Moving on to atrophy, we'll look at the muscles that cross the elbow joint. So we'll look at the biceps. We'll look at the common extensors, which run down the lateral aspect of the forearm. We'll look at the common flexors, which run down the medial aspect of the forearm, as well as the triceps down the posterior humerus. And you can compare side to side looking for any asymmetry or differences. In terms of deformities, the main thing we want to look for is any flexion contractures. So can I get you to straighten your arms again? And so she has approximately 0 degrees of extension, which would show us that there is no flexion contracture here. And then with skin changes, you can look for things like gouty tophi, as we mentioned, or any scars, or any erythema, or any side-to-side deformities. So we'll move on to palpation. So we'll take a systematic approach again. We'll start with the lateral aspect of the elbow. So we can palpate the lateral epicondyle. This is a potential source of tenderness in tennis elbow. We can palpate the radial head. This is most easily felt if you pronate and supinate the arm. And sometimes you can even palpate the annular ligament, which lies over top of the radial head. I'll just get you to put your hand on your other shoulder there. Next, we can palpate the olecranon process for any tenderness or any bursitis. The paraolecranon groove, as we mentioned. We can palpate down the ulna. And we can go medially, palpate the medial epicondyle, palpate the cubital tunnel. And then anteriorly, we can palpate the biceps tendon. This is best felt at about 90 degrees. And then just lateral, we can find the brachial artery. Next, we'll move on to range of motion. So to start with range of motion, we'll look at full extension. So I'll just get you to fully extend your arms, and then I'll get you to touch your shoulders. So this would be a full active range of motion, and in most adults, it would be between 0 and 150 degrees. A functional range of motion would be between 30 and 130 degrees. Once we assess active range of motions, if there was any deficits, we'd move on to passive range of motion. Important with the elbow not only is flexion and extension, but also pronation and supination. So I'll just get you to glue your elbows into your sides, and with your thumbs up at the sky, I'll get you to turn palm down. So this is pronation, which a normal range would be 90 degrees. And then thumbs up to the sky again, and then palms up to the sky, and that's also 90 degrees of supination. So if there was any deficits, for example, if we didn't have full supination and our patient could only get to about 30 degrees, then we would move forward with passive range of motion. And so in passive range of motion, I would attempt to elicit any further range of motion and see if there's any soft or bony blocks to achieving full range of motion. Moving forward, we can do power testing. So again, I'll get you to glue your elbows into the side. This is best done as an isometric test, where you want to isolate the muscles around the elbow. So you just want to support the patient's elbow, and I'm going to get you to push up towards your shoulder. So this is testing flexion, and don't let me push up. This is testing extension. And you want to test pronation and supination again, so don't let me turn your wrist over, and don't let me turn your wrist over. So that's testing pronation and supination. And then to conclude our test, we'll move on to our special tests. The first special tests involve stability, and so these are best done at 30 to 60 degrees. So I'll just get you to bring your elbow to about 30 degrees. And so these are going to be varus and valgus tests, testing the medial and lateral collateral ligaments. So with one arm above and one hand below the elbow, you can provide a gentle valgus stress, which is going to stress the medial collateral ligament. And then you can change your hands around and provide a varus stress to test the lateral collateral ligaments, and you compare side to side to look for any laxity. I'll get you to bring your elbows into 90 degrees. So now you can do anterior to posterior translation. So with one hand on the humerus and one hand on the forearm, you can provide an anterior to posterior force, again seeing if there's any laxity. And then we'll move on to our tests for golfer's elbow and tennis elbow. So for these, I'll get you to bring your arms all the way straight. This is going to put your muscles this is going to make your muscles as long as possible. So with tennis elbow, it's going to be lateral epicondylitis, where you have your pain, so at the lateral epicondyle. For this one, I'm going to get you to make a fist and bring it into a fully extended position, and we're going to do resisted wrist extension, so don't let me push your hand down. And if it recreates pain in the lateral aspect of the elbow, that would be a positive test. The other test we can do for tennis elbow would be passive range of motion. And so I'll get you to curl your fingers all the way in, and we're going to curl your wrist all the way in. And does that recreate any pain? No. So that would again be a negative test. For medial epicondylitis or golfer's elbow, we'll get you to bring your wrist all the way down. And so we're going to do resisted wrist flexion, so don't let me move your hand. So pain recreated on the medial aspect of the elbow would be a positive test. And then again, we can do full passive range of motion. So for this, I'm just going to extend your fingers. And if that recreates pain, that would be a positive test as well. And then lastly, if I get you to bring your arms back down to your sides, we can also do a Hooks test, which would be for a distal biceps tendon tear. So just examining the antecubital fossa again, we're going to use one finger to try to hook under the biceps tendon from lateral to medial. And you're just sensing to see if that tendon is intact. And if you can feel the tendon, then that would suggest that there is no distal biceps tendon tear. This has been a demonstration of the clinical exam of the elbow. For any other clinical exams not covered today, please see the links below.